female dwarf that we will ever see on screen.
Woo, woo, woo!
This is a show that seemingly reflects much more of our world today, right? And has some modern sensibilities to it. Talk to me about like why that's necessary, obviously, and important, obviously, but like it's not something that has traditionally been the case in fantasy.
I think it is time. I think with a franchise of this scale, it is so important that we make it as accessible as we possibly can for every single generation.
It's just going to mean so much to like me personally because it's getting that representation in Middle-earth.
It is so time for us to expand the accessibility and the opportunity for this world, Tolkien's world, to be seen in a way that it hasn't been seen.
There are so many diverse people out there who will have really enjoyed all of the works that we've seen before, but now they get to see themselves staring back at them. Like, that's incredibly important.
I also want to say representative, because we're getting like more diversity within this series. Like, we're seeing our first black elf, we're seeing the first female dwarf, and I'm very looking forward to like looking at that.
It's so great to be able to have so many faces now to extend the accessibility for people like me to see themselves staring back at them in such a huge franchise.
This to me just feels like something that has just the furthest possible reach, and you know, we're choosing to tell it in these times, so we should represent it for these times.
It'd be so cool to be able to see more female representation, to maybe see them actually interact with one another.
I play Princess Disa. She is a dwarf, the first female dwarf that we will see.
I just think of my young self and how she would feel to see me on screen, and I have a young daughter and how she will feel to see me on screen. So I think that is, it's incredibly important in more ways than one.
Sophia, I cannot tell you what a thrill it was to see you up on the screen as the first female dwarf depicted from this world. I mean,
First ever female dwarf to ever truly be seen.
You know, she is the first female dwarf that we have ever seen on screen.
First female dwarf as a female dwarf.
Female dwarf.
Female dwarf.
female dwarf.
Female dwarf.
Female dwarf. Female dwarf.
Female dwarf.
Female dwarf.
Female dwarf. Female dwarf.
Nerdrotic.com.
I really didn't want to make this video. Who am I kidding? Of course I did. You think we'd be all caught up after that montage of inclusivity and representation, but not even close. And we still have 23 days to go until the release of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. So let's not waste any time and get to probably the most brain-dead article written about this series, followed by the most hysterically cringe headline written about this series. Rings of Power star explains what to expect from new Lord of the Rings series. We've known from the beginning, but it's nice to get confirmation from an adult pretender. New characters, improved representation, and focus on lesser-known Tolkien works or completely fabricated works under the guise of Tolkien shape big-budget series or flop. Actor or adult pretender Sophia Numvetti appears in this promotional photo from Amazon's new Lord of the Rings adaptation or inspiration, The Rings of Power. The massive, well, that's not very nice. Oh, they're talking about the show, sorry. Show is set to be the most expensive series ever made, according to Entertainment Weekly. Oh, look at how this article starts out. Like it or not, Hollywood is going back to the world of dwarves, magic, hobbits, and Middle-earth. Amazon Studios' upcoming Lord of the Rings series, The Rings of Power, revisits the seminal work, no, completely original work, fabricated work, fan fiction, work of fantasy literature. Again, the only fantasy here is Amazon thinking this is Tolkien. After director Peter Jackson first adapted writer J.R.R. Tolkien's main trilogy and then his prequel, The Hobbit, which is going to look like Shakespeare by the time this is done. This time, a new creative team, which has taken part in the destruction of two franchises, Star Trek and Star Wars, and the showrunners only have a partial credit on a bad Star Trek movie. It also does include Star Trek Discovery writers, is looking deeper in Tolkien's lore to tell a story many fans may not be familiar with because it never existed. Here's everything we know about the new series so far, including hints that the cast gave to CBC, the state-run media up in Canada, on what to expect. By the way, speaking of Canada, in unrelated news, James Franco has been cast to play Justin Trudeau's dad. A first look at Tolkien's Second Age, while previous adaptations have looked mostly at Lord of the Rings' Third Age, no, completely, except for an epilogue. Rings of Power goes thousands of years earlier to the Second Age. That period, which itself spans about 3,500 years, which they're going to, shrink down into 5, includes a huge amount of backstory that leads directly to the main trilogy, the story of Numenor, the ancient kingdom of men who would eventually come to Middle-earth, the rise and fall of a major villain, Sauron, and of course, the forging of the 20 Rings of Power. Looking back at the history gives Rings of Power the opportunity to expand some lesser-known characters who influence the movie's audiences are more familiar with. In other words, completely make shit up about established characters. That includes Isildur, the character most famous for refusing to destroy the ring when he had a chance at the beginning of the installment The Fellowship of the Ring. Kinda like the Tolkien estate, the installment this show was not connected to in any way, shape, or form. That's the good news. This is from the actor Lloyd Owens reading more prepared lines. The exciting part for me is that there are these signposts on the way that Tolkien has written, but he hasn't actually fleshed out these characters to the extent that the other characters are in the Lord of the Rings books. Exactly, because they have no dialogue. There is no characterization, and that's exactly why they chose this. I hate prequels, because all they're used for now is to subvert the established IP. There was Captain Kirk, except in Star Trek Discovery, a girl did it better. Or with Predator, before Dutch, a girl did it better. Or before the Avengers with Captain Marvel, a girl did it better. But it's not all prequels. Sometimes you can do it within the show, like with Doctor Who. Back to the article. Non-canon additions. As Owen said, The Rings of Power draws from some of Tolkien's least fleshed out history. That was deliberate, while Amazon Prime has the rights to use information from Lord of the Rings appendices, extensive but not story-focused add-ons to the novels, also called the Legendarium. They don't have the access to the other books Tolkien wrote that cover the same period. Once again, all of the rationalizations that were rolled out by the Tolkien professors and experts to justify this garbage won't be applicable because Amazon doesn't have the rights. There's a lot of contradictions in this article, but this one might be at least in the top 2. As a workaround, showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay introduce a number of new characters who don't conflict with the canon of Lord of the Rings, but help to prop up some lacking narrative. One of those additions is Emma Horvath's Arryn, daughter of Elendil, a daughter who never existed. Horvath said that the character brings a new female energy to the family that wouldn't have otherwise existed, meaning you're absolutely changing an established family in the Lord of the Rings. Of course, we already know about Nori Brandyfoot and Poppy Proudfellow, aka female Frodo and female Sam, with a possible Gandalf. That one isn't confirmed yet, and I don't think we do find out in the first season, but I wouldn't put it past them.
What year is it?
Big budget, you're damn right. $58 million an episode. That's $28 million more than House of the Dragon. And yeah, sure, it could turn out to be House of the Patriarchy, but it still looks 1,000 times better. The costuming looks better. The armor looks better. The weaponry looks better. The scenery looks better. The cinematography looks better. The sets look better. The CGI looks better. In a Hollywood Reporter roundtable last year, Amazon Studios chief Jennifer Salk explained they would need a global audience, I believe she said giant global audience, to make the show profitable. Something that The Lord of the Rings already has, and something you have greatly alienated. It's a tall order, especially now, though Salk said Amazon is pretty confident that will happen. Are you still? Lots changed since that roundtable. An updated old world. Here come the rationalizations. In trying to capture that audience, Rings of Power is attempting to address some of the criticism previously hurled at the franchise by academics. And you know, when we heard that criticism up to 5 years ago, we brushed it off as idiotic, because it is. Critics often took to Peter Jackson's adaptations to task for a lack of diversity in both gender and race, something casting has already pushed back against this time around. Well, this was as predictable as Warrior Galadriel. If you can't measure up to Jackson's trilogy, then we're gonna tear them down. And Amazon, this is exactly why you failed before you even began. I seem to be saying this a lot in these Rings of Prime videos, but it doesn't end there. After the cast list was first announced, some fans expressed outrage over a more gender-balanced cast than previously seen. The creative team pushed back. They most certainly did in their very first official article, and the fans have been beating them senseless ever since. The fans, including myself, were not angry at a more gender-balanced cast. We were angry because we knew you were going to destroy the lore based on every other franchise we've seen before. I did not mean that to rhyme. Over the last 6 years, and everything we've seen since February has proved us absolutely right. We asked whether the show's plot would have some women front and center this time. Richards had a blunt response. I don't know who Richards is. Well, here we are, she said, and I think that says it all. Instead of having a female and male-centric show, just like the source material, they're bending the lore until it breaks to give us female-centric Lord of the Rings. Except one of our main females is gonna act like a dude, Galadriel. Another change is Sophia Nomvedi, who plays Disa, a dwarven princess. Oh, here we go.
What I would love is for everybody to come on the journey where those two worlds collide and where we don't change anything, but we interpret everything in this incredible, unique way.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
It means absolutely everything. It is everything. It is everything for people of colour. It is everything to progress forward in the film.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
To progress forward in the film and television industry, to be doing something of this scale and to be positioned, as Princess Disa, as a woman of colour, as a mother.
Is this a bad time to mention she's barely in the show?
Is exactly what our industry and what this incredible piece of television needs. Everyone was cast because they were the absolute best person for the role. What? What the fuck? And to be part of a redress of balance within this world is an honour.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
And now for something completely different.
I'm excited about the Rings of Power, but how gay could it be from the digital fix? Considering it's a book series written by a devout Catholic, not at all. Also considering it's being interpreted in modern day by Amazon.
And I got news for you. That means you can.
All right, I'm only going to go over a couple of sentences in this article because I enjoy my sanity and I respect your time. Plus, it's the same old argument. With these steps to pull Tolkien's work into the modern world, as a gay Tolkien nerd, says the author, I have to ask, how gay will it be? Well, if you're a Tolkien nerd, you would know, not at all. Maybe you can find other human elements to identify with, like I do, because I'm not a hobbit or a Harfoot or a dwarf or an elf or a dude that lives over 300 years. Listen, we're not talking about leaving out Tom Bombadil or leaving out the naked hobbits dancing with Tom Bombadil or leaving out the Barrow Downs, which would have been pretty damn cool actually, or leaving out the Scouring of the Shire or Glorfindel's big moment being stolen by Arwen. We're talking about fundamentally changing the message of this story that Tolkien deliberately put in, which is fundamentally changing the story. And if you need that to happen to enjoy it, then I would argue you're not a Tolkien fan. And we'll end it here. There's always some jackass who needs to roll out on Twitter how you couldn't make Lord of the Rings today because of the Éowyn scene. And while I half agree with this statement, I don't agree with the summation. The Éowyn scene was written in the 50s and the film came out 20 years ago and no one had a problem with it. But you're right. You can't interpret, adapt Tolkien properly today, because if you did make the Lord of the Rings, Éowyn would be the king of Rohan, Arwen would be the god king of Middle Earth, and they would team up to fight Sauron, whose mother taught him everything he knew, and once Sauron was vanquished, his mom would be forgiven. That and warrior Galadriel will be in full body armor. If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
Nerdrotic.com.
Cast it into the fire! Destroy it!
We made it up. We made this one up. It's a made-up tale. It's a total fabrication.